Jeff, what's the biggest flaw you see staffing firms make in developing their sales teams?
A couple things. The first is, and this ties back to the overall strategy that they have, the front end. Once you align your value propositions to the different verticals that you're going to be selling into, have I aligned my sales talent and how to present and how to become memorable in front of those specific verticals? And the issues that I come across in my experience in staffing is, one, the approach is a bit too transactional and it's not strategic enough. And we can talk more about what that means. But a lot of that is embedded in the way that we develop and the way that we train our salespeople. And then knowing the nuances. And here's where I do run into this quite a bit. There's a whole different way to sell into an existing customer versus how you sell into new business development, trying to get new logos. And most strategies go both ways, but you have to train on the nuances. They're polarizingly opposite approaches. All the same psychological, all the same biases, all the same behavioral psychology that's going on exists, but oftentimes it's reversed in how you approach an existing client versus how you approach trying to get a new logo in. And I don't believe, one, that we're aligning our sales teams and their talents to going after new business, and then how to approach an existing client to get add-on, to upsell, to get brand extensions, different, services involved.
How should we approach an existing customer?
Well, an existing customer, you have to leverage what's the biggest challenge is a new, and that's the status quo bias. So when you already have an existing client, they know exactly, they've invested in your company. So the onboarding's already been paid for. When I say status quo bias, they stay. Why? Because they've invested the time and the effort and the resources in bringing you on. Change is just very difficult for all of us. And so when you're selling into an existing client, that's where you start. So if you think about it this way, the biggest difference, I believe, for selling existing clients versus selling new clients is understanding loss aversion. In other words, human beings are 2 to 3 times more will protect a loss than they will to get a gain. So let's move that into the sales environment. And I don't believe that there's enough development around loss aversion because it's the quickest way to get to a yes or no. It's part of the whole closing process. Well, it's reversed. If I'm selling into an existing client, loss aversion to them is the loss of taking the risk to go with another supplier or to go with another vendor. And so I leverage that and I put evidence in front of them. There's just plenty of strategies to demonstrate why it's so important to stay where you are and avoid the risk. Now think about that in the context of getting a new logo. I have to overcome. So I have to now paint a picture. I have to contrast what that client stands to lose if they choose to do nothing. And then contrast that with the value that I bring, the value that my company brings to helping them develop and grow their own business. So it's the same bias, it's loss aversion.
Yeah.
The difference is selling it into an existing versus selling it into a new logo.
How do you then articulate that to a current customer? What do you propose people say on the phone, or if you're sitting down with a current customer, how can you actually articulate that message to them?
Well, you have to go back to the beginning. So start to identify and pretty much verbalize, if it's a phone call, a testimonial, a case study of what the situation was like when you and I first met. What problems were they happening? You're taking them back to the pain so they can remember why they chose you in the first part. And then I would carry that forward with all the effort that was put in on both sides. In other words, how much time and effort they put in vetting us out, how many resources, how much money they spent in doing that. And then I would shift the conversation to the onboarding process. And then probably lastly, I would put evidence. I'd have to put up evidence of how their business has improved, why it's in a better position today than it was when we first met.
Knowing that a lot of our clients, so on the staffing side of it, the clients that we're working with are working with multiple staffing firms. They're not exclusive to one staffing firm internally. How do you then have that loss aversion conversation internally, knowing that they're sort of already two-timing us? They're sort of already working with another player.
Yeah, I didn't have as much of experience with that. I mean, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But again, you go back to this is where, and you were talking about some of the differences around being transactional. You look at and I'm talking about the top 10, 15% of business development professionals, whether they're in the account manager position or in the sales position.
Sure.
They own that relationship. They have so much credibility with the client. They have so much trust in the client that ultimately they put enough evidence, because their role is to teach and tailor their presentations to that client, put enough evidence in front of them and create and paint a picture of what the opportunity looks like to even take on more and what that would mean to them. I mean, think about it in your own business. Who likes having multiple vendors? I disagree with that thinking that I want to put two together or three together to have them compete with each other. That doesn't match up with any science. That doesn't match up with any reality around loyalty, around commitment. I can do a lot more with you, provided I continue to expand the current revenue stream.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about my friends over at Tricom. What if your back office fueled your growth instead of holding it back? Tricom makes it happen. From payroll and billing to accounting and asset-based lending, Tricom clears the roadblocks, empowers your path forward. Your team gets paid, your cash flow stays steady, and your business scales like never before. Tricom doesn't just support you, they set you up to soar. To learn more about my friends over at Tricom, visit tricom.com. That's TRICOM.com. All right, let's get back to the show. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I would agree, right? I don't want to work with multiple vendors in anything that I do. I want to find one person that can assist me in multiple ways and find the right vendor for the challenges that I have. Now, yes, certainly if there are things outside of vendor one's area of expertise, then yeah, you have to go find somebody else to support, right? You're not going to ask your plumber to work on your car, right? You go find somebody else to work on a different challenge. So I think that makes complete sense. And I'm sitting here trying to marinate on the thought of, well, how do we get more business from these current customers? And in understanding loss aversion and understanding what it's going to cost you to vet new staffing firms or vet a new process, you're almost playing on the offense while also playing on the defense, right? Yes. You're trying to drive new business by saying, listen, here's what it would cost you to go a different route. And you're almost saying, listen, have we really been that bad that you need to go down that route? Like, we have a pretty good thing going, you and I.
I think I might frame that a little differently in saying that let me show you all the advances, all the technological improvements. And again, this is why all along the way you're managing the relationship. That I can put in front of you examples of how we've adapted our service. Because what happens is not just in staffing, in any business, the longer the relationship goes, the more value you have to put in there. You become more valuable because now we've learned how to work together. We know the inner workings of you. We know what works well, what doesn't work. So how do I leverage all that time and effort that we've put in to say this is what's important to you? Because going back to the multiple supplier situation, what's really underneath that is a lack of trust. There has to be. If the client feels that I need to keep everybody honest by having two or three partners, it's a lack of trust. And that comes back, I believe, to the business development person that there's ways to work through that, to gain more of that trust, to get a larger share of their total revenue.
Do you think we as an industry struggle with account management?
My impression is this: we put probably 80 to 85% of our investment in going after new business, marketing
Agreed.
for it.
Agreed.
And I don't see, it's kind of counterintuitive. Your highest margin business should be your existing core business. Mm-hmm. And the investment it takes to expand that, provided it is, expandable, I think we should redirect more of our effort there. So as an industry, I do agree. There's so much I've heard in the last couple of years about going after new business development, hiring people to do new business development. And that's a very important element. It's been in all my businesses. I kind of separate it out. I never liked combining those roles, but that's a strategic decisions that companies have to make.
Yeah.
But I don't believe there's enough. In fact, there's very little. There's very little training and development for selling into an existing client, because the assumption is we're there and all I just have to do is make the recommendation. It's as challenging as selling a new logo. It just has a whole different process.
Yeah.
I've yet to see it in the companies that I've been working with, that they have a specific sales playbook or a sales strategy on how to sell new. And again, it's leveraging the psychological influences and things that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me. I have the opportunity to talk to probably 6 to 7 different clients a day, whether it's a current client or a prospective staffing and recruiting firm in the industry looking for some marketing advice. And it's always new business. It's always new logos. It's always going to fish and find new clients. And I, for a while now, have been saying, listen, the business is right in front of you. You're just looking in the wrong direction. Yeah. Yes, we should have a strategy that goes after new logos, but you can grow your business just by getting deeper with your current customers. You can absolutely grow your business by getting deeper with the current clients that you're already working with. And I haven't been able to figure it out. I haven't been able to, in conversations like this or on calls I'm a part of, figure out why we are so fascinated by the bright, shiny object. Maybe it's just human nature to chase new things. Yes. My other thought that I'm having right now while we have this conversation is maybe the current sales rep who's working on the account didn't sell the initial account, so they don't have the relationship. We know there's high turnover in staffing and recruiting. So when we think about the account management function, maybe the current person focused on Brad's widget company has never even met Brad, right? They didn't sell the initial account. They didn't get the initial job order. So they're working the account, but they don't know anything about me. And in that case, I would say, well, get to know me, because that makes a ton of sense, Jeff, as we're talking about.
It's easier to approach. You think about the ATS systems and all the different companies. There's gold in there. There's accounts that haven't been touched and they haven't been mined. You have to take a very strategic approach. So you take a look at your portfolio and you divide it into categories. The first and foremost, which are the ones that are already high revenue, but high opportunity.
Yeah.
Because that will determine the type of resource you put on it. If I have a high revenue and a high revenue opportunity client, I'm putting my best people on it. I'll go out and visit with that client, but they're going to be on a regular cadence. They're going to be my highest touch. Where I'm going to spend very little time are the accounts that are low revenue and low opportunity. That's just standard.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to take a look at my low. And this is where I think in the ATS, this is where in the Bullhorns and the Aviantes of the world, sitting is a number of low revenue accounts, low revenue accounts, but high potential.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I would really put a strategy together, identify those 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, depending upon the size of your business, and develop a very robust strategy on how we're going to go to market to get more business. You're already in there. You've already proven yourself. So I just think it's a big opportunity.
How do you propose we go after that opportunity? Or actually, let me rephrase that if you don't mind. How do you propose we uncover that opportunity?
Well, you've uncovered by really looking at the revenue streams that you have already on those clients. How you determine the opportunity piece, you have to start and do a little bit of research. You got to invest some time in identifying where they're at, where their locations are, what industry they're in, is that industry growing? And take all that information into play, and then go out and try. Just go out and find locations. You can already reference that you're a preferred supplier, knowing that you're servicing in other locations. Even if it's one location, you're still in there. You're a preferred supplier, not exclusive, but your preferred. And I think that says a lot on a call. It makes, in other words, it makes that prospecting call a little warmer.
Sure.
A little bit easier to talk to.
I think it's just important to have the conversation with somebody to understand, listen, if we're working with you already, to understand how much opportunity lies within that organization. What are your staffing needs outside of what we're currently doing? I know we see it all the time at Haley Marketing. It's sort of that first purchase. I'm going to articulate the mentality wrong, but it's that first purchase sort of lock-in. So for us as a marketing agency, if somebody comes to us for blogging services, we're the blogging people. Now we're a full service marketing agency that can run everything across digital up through the tops of taxi covers and bus wraps down to your business cards and flyers. But Jeff, if you came to us for blogging, we're the blogging people. That's the first thing you bought from us, and that's what it is. And I fear in staffing and recruiting, it's the same way. You know, you place some production workers inside of a plant. That's who you are. You don't completely ignore the fact that you can also do the office clerical side of things. You can do the management side of things. You can do the direct hire side of things. You can do even more high volume temp staffing side of things. And it's having the conversation to say, well, okay, where else is there demand within your organization? Yes, we do currently ABC with you, but here's who we are. Here's how we can help. And you know our track record. We've worked together for X years.
Absolutely.
We've had the relationship. But it's about opening that, exactly right. But it's about opening that door and saying, okay, what else is behind this door?
No, I agree completely. You're talking about social proof, a very, very strong influencer, no question.
What is social proof to you?
Well, social proof is where it applies to sales.
Yeah.
One of the books that was really transformational for me when it came to sales was Robert Cialdini's The Power of Influence. In other words, the psychology of influence. And he originally had 6. Social proof was one of them. So social proof in a sales situation is I'm on a call with a client, and depending upon where they're at in the market. So if I'm in Atlanta, social proof is part of my talk track, part of my presentation to them is sharing with them evidence of where I also have serviced clients identical to them, where I have solved some of the same problems. Social proof is people want to know, they don't want to feel like they're alone out there. It just raises the risk profile. Social proof is me putting evidence. I've experienced companies like there are 15 companies within a 20-mile radius like your business that we are currently providing solutions for and very successful outcomes.
Yeah.
That's social proof. And that exists either on existing a client or even if I'm prospecting. It's very powerful in prospecting new logos because it chips away at that loss aversion equation.
I was just going to say that, I'm a big advocate for social proof, right? Testimonials, case studies, reviews, whatever it might be, having the data that supports basically that you can walk the walk and not only just talk the talk, right? But now I'm sitting here thinking that it's more about loss aversion than it is having the social proof. It's speaking to somebody saying, listen, here's why you can trust us because we're doing it over here for this company. You don't have to worry as much, right? It's almost like if you're going for surgery, you want to make sure that the doctor that's working on you has done this before, that has the track record. Right. You don't want the guy who's right out of college, right? And I know he needs his practice reps too, but I don't want him to get him on me. You want somebody who's done it before. The same with flying, right? Give me the pilot that's got thousands of hours under their belt, not the person that's just getting out of school, right? So that to me is interesting. Jeff, I've been doing this now for close to 13 years, and I have never thought about social proof in the sense of loss aversion and using it under that psychology. So I appreciate you bringing that to this conversation.
You're not alone there, Brad. And the whole loss aversion was a gift that was given to us by Daniel Conaham back in really 2004, him and his partner, and since has been supported and validated by numerous other studies. The gentleman, Conaham, won the Nobel Prize for economics in 2004 based on prospect theory, which is where loss aversion comes from. And he was a psychologist. That had never happened before. Yeah. That was the kind of rebirth in where all of a sudden behavioral sociology, behavioral psychology, behavioral economics started to just change the ways companies went to market. And marketing companies picked up on it pretty quickly.
Sure.
I can tell you, not just even anecdotally, a great question to ask any sales manager is how do you leverage two things? How do you leverage loss aversion? How do you apply loss aversion in your sales process? And how do you use contrast? Contrast really came to us from the neuroscientists. There's so much new data that's come out in the last 15 years. And I've been around much longer than you have. I've had to relearn and rethink a number of things. And unfortunately, the way that I was trained professionally as a salesperson 25, 30, 35 years ago, a lot of that methodology is still in play today, and it's been discredited. It's proven that there's just too much rich information out there. So back to my point, ask a sales manager, ask a salesperson about loss aversion and contrast, and if they can't answer you directly, can't share with you how they present that, they're losing business. Because those two elements alone will help close more business than most things that you can do on a client visit.
What do you mean by contrast?
Well, contrast is understanding loss aversion. So again, in a new sale, contrast is, from the neurosciences, they tell us that contrast gives clarity to an individual. It narrows the focus of what we're talking about. So when you're contrasting, if it's a new client, if I was trying to sell my services to you, Brad, how I would contrast it, and this is kind of counterintuitive the way that I was trained. Leveraging loss aversion says, I paint a picture, Brad, of what it would mean to you, to your business, by not using my services. In other words, the pain would be so great. By choosing to do nothing, you are potentially causing your company some level of impairment, productivity. So you have to paint that first. And once I get affirmation on that, and that could come through an implication type question, I contrast that and now shift to what life would look like working with me, the value that it would bring. And if that's greater, that can help you get over that 2 to 3 times fear of holding on to something because we just fear the change. It's the reverse on an existing client. But contrast will get you to a decision probably quicker than anything else that you can do strategically on a call. It takes practice. It takes effort. It takes understanding. I don't believe that it's a part of most sales development programs. That gets back to the transactional piece. This is all the qualitative aspects of understanding the psychology of a sale.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about an offer exclusive to listeners of Take the Stage. 30 minutes of strategic marketing consultation with me, completely free. Hey, whether you're looking to drive more sales or more job applications, I want to help. Visit bit.ly/stage offer. Pick a time that works best for you. That's it. Again, whether you want to drive more applications or more job orders, I want to help. That's bit.ly/stage offer. All right, let's get back to the show.
I don't think it's a part of a lot of sales playbooks, and I don't think it's a part of a lot of sales techniques. And I agree with you. I think the majority of the industry still thinks this is a transactional business. And I am on enough calls to understand that the transactional side of staffing and recruiting is long gone, where a buyer just calls and says, hey, today's your lucky day. We haven't been able to fill this role. I need you. I think is long gone. Long gone. Jeff, what's interesting to me, though, is this isn't coming up, right? So we're sticking to old playbooks. We're sticking to outdated call scripts. We're sticking to just picking up the phone and hopefully calling 200 people in the hope that one person has a conversation with us. I am 100% bought into what you're saying in the methodology of understanding loss aversion and understanding contrast. How do I get a potential buyer on the phone to actually talk about that, though? How do I break through from a cold call or a prospecting, program or campaign to then actually have the conversation where I can articulate some of these things to them?
Well, let's go back to your existing clients.
Sure.
One of them, and this applies, I think, in any sales organizations. I'll just give you a couple statistics.
Okay.
There was a survey done by Dale Carnegie. 91% of customers that they surveyed, 91%, this is in the US, said that they would refer their salesperson to someone in their network. 91%. What do you think the percentage of salespeople that consistently ask for referrals?
It's got to be single digits.
I'll give you a little more. I'll give them a little more credit. It's 11%. So think about.
So not much more than a single digit, though.
Think about the delta there.
Yeah.
So again, that's part of professional selling. I look at my own network, the professional business development people that I've been close to over the last 25 years. They don't cold call. Now, that's easy for me to say. They work exclusively off referral or they're recommended. I mean, I was CEO for 25 years, closed that chapter, started my own advisory service around sales development and leadership and management development.
Yeah.
In 6 years, I've never gone after a client. A client that I have, I was either called and asked or it was referred by somebody in my network.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's no better way to work. Now, that's easy for me to say. You talked about making the call. You can start today by learning how to ask and asking a much broader audience than what you believe. My definition of when you ask for a referral is when I've gained your trust. But go back to if you want to ease your way into it, go back to your existing clients. They're your best brand advocates. Sit down with them, remind them of the problem that you solve, and then simply ask them in their network, would they be willing to share some people that they could make contacts to? So that's where I would start the process. But once you get good at it, I know in our businesses, you had on a client visit, it was an agreement. It was an agreement that I had with my business development teams. You had to ask for a referral on every client visit you were on. And you had to document that in your CRM. That's a discipline that has to get built into your business.
Why don't you think people ask for referrals?
Fear. I've heard it's all our own. It's our own stuff. Right?
Yeah.
I feel I'm being salesy. I feel it cheapens it.
Yeah.
If you trust me, so let me just ask you this way, Brad. Think about the service companies or the providers in your own personal network that really bring a lot of value to you.
Yep.
The gym you go to. I don't just think about them.
Yep.
You would recommend them wholeheartedly because we all experience so much lousy service and lousy recommendations that when we find somebody that is of high value, we want to share that with others. But it's our
Jeff,
own personal stuff.
What's super interesting is I was just thinking last weekend that I want to have more people in key areas of my life. I have my dry cleaner. They come, they pick up my laundry, they return it. I don't have to do anything. But that is my person. I have the same guy cut my hair for the last 3 years. Tony's my guy. I would refer Tony to anybody. There's another dry cleaner that I know if anybody is in a bind, they can have your same day stuff returned, polished, looking fantastic same day if you're in a bind. They helped me out. I had an uncle unexpectedly pass away. I needed a suit that day. They helped me out, and I will forever refer that company to anybody asking in Buffalo, New York. Different than the company that, hey, you need some shirts done, we'll get them back in a week, whatever. That's fine.
Sure.
But I'm with you. And I think it's interesting that we're so hesitant to ask for a referral. Maybe we think it's ego, right? Maybe we think it's, they're just, they're thinking I'm just looking for a testimonial to make them feel good. But gosh, when you have somebody that you have found and they're in your corner, I mean, you absolutely want to scream that to other people and you want to tell other people about it. Think about, if you go out and you have a good steak, you absolutely want to tell all your friends to go check out that restaurant. You want to tell them about the lousy one, but you want to tell them about the good one.
And that same person that won't ask for a referral will put 15 different likes to meals that they go out or shows that they go to. And it's an interesting paradox.
Jeff, before I let you go, I want to ask you one more question. What do you think the staffing industry is getting wrong about sales right now?
I think there's not enough. There are companies that are brilliant at this, but
sure.
It's accepting the fact that we're in a 3-year retraction. So
Yes.
we're in a crisis. And what do you do when you're in a crisis? You have 3 choices. You can try to fix the problem and spend all your time and effort on fixing the problem. And I see a lot of that. And you do need to do some of that. Or you can go into avoidance mode. And I've seen that. That's 2 out of the 3 strategies in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
There's really only one way, though, to approach it. If you were talking about those 10, 15, 20% of companies that are thriving, is that, yes, I'm putting adequate resources to fix the problem, but it's not things like I need more of this. I need more activity. I need more calls. What they're doing, Brad, is they're reassessing their business. They're putting emotional and cognitive effort into thinking and looking for what? Where is there a silver lining here? Where is there an opportunity that others don't see?
Yes.
And rigorously putting time and effort into that. I've seen companies find, think about your own personal. When do we have transformations and breakthroughs in our lives? It's when we've hit rock bottom. Well, when you hit rock bottom, if you're willing to lean into feeling a little uncomfortable and reassessing your business model, you may say no to more clients and say yes to others. It comes back to our earlier discussion around dividing up your business into segments that are high revenue, high potential, being more strategic about it. That I don't see enough. And then what I don't see on top of that when it comes to sales is any structure into their selling, meaning that they have made such an important part and commitment around sales, learning, and development that they either create an academy or a university. They memorialize their secret sauce, how they do what they do, both the fundamental aspects of it and all the qualitative aspects of how they go to market into let's say, a foundational playbook. And then breaking that playbook into probably monthly or bi-monthly learning and development opportunities for their sales teams. That's highly accountable, that's high energy, that also involves them. When I create and work with a company at creating a sales playbook for them, I emphasize the first edition is just that. It's the first edition. Why? Because over the next 4 months of working with their sales teams, who those men and women are closer to the client than any of us, they know best practice. And I want their best practice to come in those workshops. I want them to engage in sharing with all of us what they've learned and what best practice is. And then that goes into the second edition, which gives you such high levels of engagement. Why? Because now they're enrolled in it. Their name is a part of how we do things here. And then repeating that training, not just a 3-month, 6-month, it's part of what we do. You memorialize it because you're going to be hiring new people and you don't have to reinvent. You already have this. And I guess lastly would be your sales management needs to support it. It needs to be brought into every one-on-one sales meeting that they have. You take the topic that you're covering in your workshops. You have a guidebook that supports that so the salesperson can take it out with them during the week and test drive it and then come back and give you feedback about what worked and what didn't. And then all of that memorialized in an LMS system or SharePoint or wherever and accessible on my phone, on my iPad. I don't want salespeople in the office. You don't make money sitting in an office. You make money out in front of your clients prospecting. That's where your opportunity exists to become memorable. That's how you win business.
I'm so fearful that the majority of staffing firms don't have that playbook because we've been so used to being a transactional industry. We're so used to being order takers that we haven't had to have a sales playbook. Is that something that you're seeing too?
Oh, I do. And in some pretty large companies, which is interesting.
Yeah. So where does somebody get started with that, right? If they're listening today and they're thinking, yeah, I agree. We need a sales playbook. We have so many sales reps that are just sort of running in 15 different directions. We're trying to get more orders, but A doesn't know what B is doing, doesn't know what C is doing, D is out. Who knows what they're doing? I actually had a call with a client a couple weeks ago. He says, I don't even want to say this out loud, but he straight up said, I don't even know what she's doing in terms of a sales rep. How can you run a business that way? Yeah. How can you be at all productive and successful without knowing how she's winning and more importantly, how she's losing so you can coach her up and fix that? Yeah. It's not her fault if she's not getting the playbook to improve.
No, I agree.
Where do we get started there though?
Well, you would start with what you have in place. It's probably in a lot of disparate areas, but I would get a small cross-functional team together, meaning I'd want to make sure account management, sales is involved, sales management, and then I'd have somebody from operations. Okay. We'd sit down and talk about and identify what is best practice when it comes to prospecting, what is best practice when it comes to our value proposition, what's best practice in how we go to market, all the elements that go into a playbook. Now, the qualitative aspects, you probably need to bring somebody from the outside in because that's training on how to do engaging presentations and so forth. But that's all over the course of as you're working through the year and even beyond that. Bring in outside experts. People love that in sales meetings. But that's where I would start. I'd memorialize all that, but here's what you have to do. You got to agree. It's not negotiable.
Right.
When you find best practice, so look at the companies that are thriving today in every industry. They go out, they're growth minded enough to say it doesn't have to be invented here. We just want the best ideas. You embed them into your playbook, which is how we do things at this company, and it's non-negotiable. So what happens is they become repeatable, systemic systems and processes on how we go to market, how we do what we do. That's how you get the consistency. So from a sales management perspective, we're measuring everyone on the same criteria. Performance is measured the same way. That would be a good place to start, to get all that memorialized, make sure that it look from a marketing perspective, that it looks good, you feel proud of that, and that it's accessible in every form of technology that I have. So if I'm out in the field and I want to brush up on handling objections, or what are the best types of questions to ask, or how do I open a client visit, I can pull that up, I can practice it, and go from there.
Yeah, Jeff, you just said something like, it doesn't need to be invented here. We just want the best ideas. And I set a marker in here because I absolutely love that quote. I love how you articulated that. And I think too many businesses are trying to do it all under their own four walls and their own roof.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't, and it doesn't need to work that way, right? If you think about an all-star quarterback, right? I'm from Buffalo. You think about Josh Allen, MVP quarterback, still as a throwing coach, still as a mechanics coach, still as a footwork coach. We bring in at the pinnacle of sports. Rory McIlroy still just won the Masters. Still brings in a swing coach. I know the week before the Masters, he went off and got lessons because there was a great story that came out. His daughter, Poppy, was wondering where he was going. And he had said, I got to go to a golf lesson. And she said, but Daddy, you know how to golf. Why are you going to a golf lesson? Yeah. Even at the pinnacle, these pinnacle athletes at the top of their sport understand, I still need to go outside of what I already know, outside of my normal coaches and get work and get help and get coached. It's so interesting to me that we don't do that in business. We don't do that in staffing and recruiting. We don't lean on the expertise of others who have been there before and have done it before to just make ourselves better and help us level up.
Yeah, that ties back into the two most important traits that I look for. So a lot of companies now are looking to hire experienced salespeople. And I have a view. It doesn't matter. If you're going to bring experienced people in, I get that. You think you're going to get a faster ramp up. Mm-hmm. But the two qualities apply whether they have experience or not, but particularly with someone experienced. They have to have a growth mindset. What do I mean by that? They have to have a beginner's mind. They have to say, I'm coming into your company. We do things completely different here.
Yes.
I respect what you've done in the past, but you better wake up every morning. I want in my interview with them, I want to ensure that they are going to wake up every morning and say, what am I going to learn today? That's essential. The other is grit or perseverance. Are they willing to put in the effort? This industry, like every industry, is changing. And if the rate of change is faster outside your business than inside your business, you're going to be out of business. And that applies to everyone working inside your company. Change is moving at a pace that, in my experience over the years, is faster than I've ever seen because of tech. Now, for all the right reasons, quite frankly. Productivity is going up. I'm convinced AI has a very big component of that. So my team needs to have that growth mindset, that beginner's mind, whether I have experience or not. Those are the two things that I think separate the top 10, 15% of high-performing individuals and the rest of the pack.
Jeff, before I get you to our rapid fire round, I want to give you the floor to share a little bit about Mariola Unlimited.
Mariola Unlimited is my wife, Michelle, and I. Her background, she was chief marketing officer for her company. And so she works on brand awareness and working with companies there. Like I mentioned earlier, I was CEO for over 25 years in 3 different companies. And the last was my staffing experience, which was the briefest of my tenure. That was 4 years. Okay. We sold to private equity. And then when I left, made the decision that I was just going to close the CEO chapter. So I went through the same thinking that I hope everyone goes through, which is that hedgehog concept, right? What am I passionate about? What am I really love to do? And then the second part of it, can I be in the top 20%? If I put the time and effort in, can I be in the elite? And then the third part being, is there an economic engine that's going to drive that? So for me, it was developing leaders. It's what I was good at as a CEO. I have over 23 of my former direct reports are now presidents or CEOs in their own businesses. And what I find the biggest gap for me was development of salespeople and development, particularly of middle managers. They get the least amount of development. At the executive level, I always got that. So that's what I do at Mariola Unlimited. I work directly with the CEOs to help them create their sales strategies, their management and leadership strategies. And then I do workshops to reinforce that. So whether it's the sales playbook and writing workshops that align with that, it's working very closely inside your business because I do the work. It's me. It's not Mariola Unlimited is, like I mentioned, it's Michelle and I. So very selective in who I work with because I want to be able to add a lot of value. But I appreciate you asking.
I've consulted with hundreds of staffing firms over the last year. And if you're anything like the owners or sales leaders I'm talking to, you're probably asking the same 2 questions. How do we open more doors to get more conversations? And how do we close more deals? Here's the good news. I've seen what works. And right now we're making it even easier to boost your lead generation without blowing your budget. For a limited time, Haley Marketing is offering 20% off our most powerful marketing tools for staffing and recruiting firms. That's door openers campaigns, custom integrated direct marketing, digital marketing solutions, sales automation services, and our exclusive Haley Mail content marketing system. We're limiting this offer to the first 30 companies that sign up. And if you're already a Haley Marketing client, the discount applies to new services only. So if you're ready to drive more sales in 2025, we'd love to help. Head over to bit.ly/Bialy20 to learn more. That's bit.ly/Bialy20, all lowercase, to learn more. All right, let's get back to the show. Before I let you go, our rapid fire round, one book that has fundamentally changed your life.
That's probably the easiest question you're going to throw me today.
Okay.
Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Without question. Not what it's just done for me, what I think Frankl's work has done for millions of people. I mean, Viktor Frankl's story, if you're familiar with it, his third school of psychology was developed while he spent time in the concentration camps. I think he eventually was in 4 of them, lost his family. He became legendary in those camps, not just from the prisoners. He became legendary to even the guards. Why? Because he would not allow that experience to define him. And all the time that he was in there, Brad, he was working on his new school of psychology. He was already a very well-known psychologist. But he believed that there was a psychology that was missing because you had Freud, which was around pleasure. You had Adler, which was around power, which is really starting to spark up more. He felt that we are on this planet to serve, particularly serve other people, and that we can find our meaning in supporting other people. We can find meaning in our work. We can find meaning in our relationships. And what was a real learning for me is you can find meaning in suffering. So think about suffering in any kind of event. Sure. It could be very small. It could be, I'm in a sales slump. His whole mindset, all of his learning, all of his training is, I'll just quote him. It sounds clinical, but this phrase has been magic for me in my own life. He said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space, we have the power and the freedom to choose our response. It's in that response where our success and our happiness lies. So what's between what's stimulus? It's a trigger. So something negative happens. My health goes bad. I lose a parent. It can be very severe. I have a friend that was diagnosed with ALS. How he has chosen to respond to that has made all the difference in the world. You can choose to allow it to tear you up and bring you down, or you can choose. You have the freedom and the power to choose that I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to make the absolute best of this. And this particular individual has become an advocate for ALS like you wouldn't believe. He's found meaning in suffering. Not that you would ever wish that upon anyone.
Sure.
But that's what Frankl means to me. Every single day, I think about what difference am I going to make in the life of somebody that's in my network. That's probably why I chose Man's Search for Meaning.
Love that, Jeff. One more question for you. One piece of advice that you would give to somebody just starting in staffing and recruiting, what would you tell them?
It's a little more complicated than most industries. So my other businesses, there was my business and then the customer. Mm-hmm. What I don't think I see enough emphasis on in staffing, it's a trilogy, isn't it? You have the candidate and you have the client. Yep. And then there's my own team, my own colleagues. So I would advise them, I'd go back to the two things I talk about, but what you need to do is have a very open-minded, growth-minded approach to understanding and learning those two elements of the business, the candidate and also the client side. Is the CEO of a staffing company, and this may sound, maybe I get some arguments on this, here's how I viewed the priority relationships. My top priority was my own team. If I could instill the values, the performance expectations, all of that into my team and engage them, then they would take care of the client. They would take care of the candidate. I put the candidate second because if I can find the highest type of candidate out there, the best fit type candidate, then I'm doing right by the client. So the client, my approach came number 3. But that's just how I viewed that. So the advice is learn all the aspects of the business. And one, it's a tough going right now. You're going to, I think in any field, you want to perform at a high level, you have to do 15% more effort in every aspect of the business than everyone else. That's how you break through. What's that mean? Well, 15% means I'm going to be putting 4 to 6 hours more in than the other person. What am I going to be doing? I'm going to be sharpening my skills. I'm going to be learning my craft. I'm going to be committed to self-development and self-learning. That's what I would coach and counsel anyone. Really, I guess not just a staffing business, but going into any business. There's no replacement for effort. You can have all the talent in the world. Effort is twice as important as talent. And believe me, there's research to support that statement.
Couldn't agree more. He's Jeff Mariola. Jeff, can't thank you enough for coming on this episode to take the stage and sharing all your insights with us, my friend.
Enjoyed chatting with you.
All right, you take care.